Blood Will Tell was built around a really strange but interesting idea. It's connected to a manga where 48 demons steal 48 of your body parts, and you have to fight through them one at a time to get them back, using what's basically a weaponized body. But what was Blood Will Tell? Blood Will Tell exists because Sega decided to turn an old manga into a game, and they treated it seriously. The source material is Dororo, a manga from the late 60s by Osamu Tezuka. It's a story built around loss. A child is born without most of his body after his father makes a deal with demons for power. Those demons take pieces of him, and he grows up hunting them down to get those pieces back. That idea carries straight into the game. Everything is built around it. When Sega picked this up in the early 2000s, the PS2 was full of these action games focused on momentum. A lot of them really leaned on feeling capable early on. Anime adaptations really followed that same pattern. They usually centered strong characters and expressive combat that just felt natural and clicked right away. Blood Will Tell starts from a different place. You begin the game lacking. That feeling sets the baseline. The way the game controls, the way it looks, and the way it moves forward all grow out of that starting point. You're meant to feel unfinished when you begin, because the character is unfinished. That approach comes from intent. The game follows Dororo's tone closely. The story moves through small arcs, each encounter feels contained. The focus stays on what's been taken and what it means to take it back.
Misaki. Why?
The release itself was small. There wasn't really a marketing push. The game didn't stay visible for very long. The copies went out and circulation just kind of slowed over time. And over the years, it became harder to find because the availability of it just faded. Physical copies thinned out. The game shifted into something people talked about more than something they actually played. That shaped how Blood Will Tell is remembered. It never had a chance to reach new players, or never had a chance to settle into the background of the PS2 era the same way the other games did. It existed, completed its run, and just moved on.
We did it!
All this comes back to commitment. Sega treated Dororo as something worth adapting with care. The developers followed through on that premise and let it guide the entire experience. That choice explains a lot about Blood Will Tell, how it feels, how it moves, and why it occupies the space it does.
It's my right arm. My real arm.
You did it, Hyakki.
Dororo, I couldn't have done it without you.
When you actually start playing Blood Will Tell, the game feels very limited. The movement feels really slow, attacks don't flow yet, enemies aren't easy to read. Everything feels really stiff, like the game hasn't given you full control yet. The opening level is in black and white. That's because Hyakkimaru doesn't even have his eyes yet. The game treats that literally. You're moving through areas without full vision. The enemies show up more as shapes than details. You're reacting to movement instead of clearly seeing what's in front of you. That affects how combat feels. The attacks are basic, the combos are short, spacing is really awkward. You don't have many options once a fight starts, so a lot of encounters happen right where you stand. There's not really a way to quickly move in or pull back yet. You also can't even sprint at the start. Getting around takes time, repositioning takes time. Fights play out at a slower pace because you're committing to every action. As you start defeating fiends and getting body parts back, the game begins to change. But before that, it helps to understand how Hyakkimaru even functions at all. When the demons took his body as a baby, he was given artificial body parts and raised by a doctor who trained him to survive. That's why he's able to move and fight and function at the start of the game, even though most of his body's missing. Those artificial parts are the foundation you're playing on. They work, but they're limited. They don't give you full control or full strength yet. They're just enough to keep you going and surviving. Each real body part you recover builds on top of that. A leg can make movement smoother, your speed improved, you unlock the ability to sprint. Traversal starts to feel more intentional instead of restrictive. You're able to approach fights differently once you gain control of distance. Over time, unlocking more body parts can change combat flow. Attacks feel more responsive. You start gaining the ability to do bigger combos. And timing in general becomes easier to manage because you're not fighting the controls anymore. Your vision changing is one of the most noticeable shifts though. When the color returns, when the world feels clearer. The enemies are easier to read, environments make more sense at a glance. Decisions happen faster because you can actually see what's going on. Hyakkimaru's body also functions as his weapon set. His arms contain blades, one leg hides a cannon, one arm carries a gun. These aren't so much tools or just weapons that you swap around. This is part of his body. As you get more of your body back, those weapons become easier to use and more reliable in combat. Early on, they feel situational. Later, they start to blend into regular combat. You're switching approaches based on distance and enemy behavior without really thinking about it. Throughout the game, though, there's also sections where you play as Dororo. She controls a bit differently. She moves faster, she relies more on positioning than strength, and her sections focus on getting through a space safely rather than fighting head-on. They play lighter, which breaks up the pace a bit. When you're controlling Hyakkimaru, Dororo stays with you. She helps in fights, she pulls enemy attention, she creates space. That support changes how encounters play out, even when you're not actively thinking about it. It gives someone else for the enemies to focus on. You can get a small window to recover or reposition. Fights feel more manageable because you're not alone. All of this shapes how Blood Will Tell feels moment to moment. The stiffness at the start disappears over time throughout the game. Controls improve gradually as you reclaim more of yourself. Movement starts to feel more deliberate, combat settles into a rhythm, the world becomes easier to move through. Those changes come directly from what you've recovered. From the beginning, you're playing with an incomplete body. That's how the game teaches you how it works.
Back to the dark.
Hey, just real quick, if you've made it this far into the video, thank you for hanging out with me for a little bit. I really do appreciate you. If you're enjoying the video and you haven't already, consider subbing. We're on track to hit 10K tonight, which is still insane to me. I say that every video, but it's crazy. This was my next big milestone, so thank you all for the support that you've shown this channel. It really feels like we've built something real here. It feels like there's an actual community in the save room. I'm really curious if some of you feel that way too. I know a lot of people have told me that these videos have become part of their daily routine. You throw them on while you're working or gaming or even falling asleep. That means more to me than I can really ever explain. And I really think this is going to turn into something special one day. And if you feel like it, you can also like the video and leave a comment. Let me know if you ever played Blood Will Tell, if you've ever heard of it, and what you remember about it. But if you haven't played it, I'd still love to hear your thoughts about the game from what you've seen in the video so far. And if you're watching on mobile, there's also the hype button. It's only there for the first 7 days of the video's live, but it does help push the video into the algorithm more. It essentially says, hey, this video's good, show it to more people. It's a way that you can directly help grow the video. But that's enough of all that. Let's get back into Blood Will Tell and finish talking about progression, because the way this game handles it is pretty interesting. One of the standout things in this game is how it's broken up. The story is divided into a prologue and a series of chapters. Each chapter functions as its own stretch of the journey, with a specific place, a specific problem, and a fiend tied to what's happening there. You enter a location, deal with the situation around it, confront the fiend, and then move on. That structure feels a lot like watching episodes of an anime. Each chapter has a beginning, a build-up, and a conclusion. The larger story continues in the background, but your attention stays focused on what that chapter is about while you're in it. Progression moves forward through these chapters, but the game isn't built as one continuous space. You move through smaller arcs one at a time, each with its own setting and tone. And not everything inside a chapter is meant to be finished the first time you go through it. Some fiends are hidden or locked away. They're tied to paths that don't open yet, areas you can't fully reach, or just spaces that don't make sense until later. You might notice something and move past it without being able to act on it yet. As you recover more of your body, those earlier chapters begin to open up some. Movement options open up, access changes, areas that felt closed off start to connect. Going back becomes part of how progression works, because you have to complete your body.
Yeah, there's something powerful in here. Looks like I found you, fiend.
Hyakkimaru, I am my own Ba. I will not let you interfere with the fiend's plans.
The game really supports this whole idea. After completing a chapter once, you've shown what's still there. The remaining fiends are tracked and you can see where they are on the map. Revisiting the chapters becomes a focused process in progressing through the game. The exploration shifts along with that structure. You return to places with purpose, checking the areas that you couldn't fully explore before. The hidden paths and sealed areas start to matter the more your body's complete. The variety of locations helps reinforce the episodic feel. Villages, forests, mountains, temples, and castles each carry their own identity. Every chapter leaves a distinct impression instead of blending together. The world of Blood Will Tell is built to be experienced in pieces and completed over time. The chapter structure shapes how the story moves, how progression unfolds, and how the journey comes together. You move forward by returning, and that's how the game expects you to become whole.
Damn you, Hyakkimaru! You let all of my followers escape! Their prayers were my strength, my nourishment!
The story for this starts long before the game ever puts controls in your hands. Hyakkimaru is born during a time of war. His father Daigo is a feudal lord trying to secure power and stability for his land. He makes a deal with demons, offering up his newborn son in exchange for strength and prosperity. The demons accept, and they take 48 parts of Hyakkimaru's body. What remains is a child missing most of what makes him human. Hyakkimaru is abandoned after that. He's found by a doctor named Jukai, who takes him in and gives him artificial body parts. These allow him to move, fight, and survive. Jukai raises him, trains him, and teaches him how to function in the world while carrying what was taken from him. That becomes the foundation the entire story rests on. When the game begins, Hyakkimaru is already grown. He's already moving through the world. He's already fighting. His journey continues from something that started long before we ever enter the story. Over time, Hyakkimaru learns the truth about what happened. The demons that took his body still exist, and each one holds a piece of him. Defeating them allows him to reclaim what was taken. That understanding sets his path. Dororo enters the story early on. She's a thief and a survivor who has learned how to live in a world shaped by war and loss. She joins Hyakkimaru through circumstance, and she stays with him as the journey unfolds. Her presence becomes constant. She shares the road with him rather than directing it. As the journey continues, the game moves through encounters that reveal the cost of Daigo's decision. Villagers suffer, people live with the consequence of choices they never made. The land reflects the bargain that shaped it.
We have been such a burden on you, Mistress Yudai.
Hyakkimaru's path brings him closer to his family. He crosses paths with his brother, he learns more about his father. Each encounter adds context to what happened and how far the consequences spread. These moments are allowed to linger.
Too shabby. Hyakkimaru.
Jackie, an emergency! Northtown's on fire!
What? Northtown?
Huh, it would appear that Lord Daigo has won this war.
Why, you...
Ah!
Dororo, what's wrong?
I've been caught by Daigo's troops!
Hang on, Dororo. I'm coming for you.
As Hyakkimaru reclaims more of his body, the meaning of that recovery deepens. Every part carries weight beyond his own restoration. The demons were tied to the land, and their presence supported something fragile. Each victory shifts that balance. Dororo grows alongside him. She becomes more capable and more confident. She moves from traveling with him to standing beside him. Their bond forms through shared time and shared danger, shared survival. The final stretch of the game brings the journey into focus. After nearly every body part has been reclaimed, one still remains. That last piece is held until the end. The final fiend has been close the entire time. It resides within Dororo. That moment ties the journey together.
If I can get my spirit inside of you, I can then lure the fiend out of your body.
You can do that?
Yes, I can do it without causing you any physical harm. Perfecting that technique was harder than I thought. Sorry I took so long.
The final body part is bound to the person who has walked beside Hyakkimaru from the beginning. The ending asks Hyakkimaru to face what being whole truly means. Reclaiming the final piece carries a cost that reaches beyond himself. It asks what restoration requires and who's affected by it. That moment hits really hard without spectacle. Dororo remains central to the resolution. The journey closes through connection rather than conquest. When Hyakkimaru becomes whole, the ending carries the weight of everything that led there. That's what the story of Blood Will Tell is about. It follows the act of reclaiming what was taken, learning why it was taken, and living with what that recovery demands. That weight carries through the story to its final moment. As much as Blood Will Tell commits to its ideas, there are places where that commitment starts to strain. Moment to moment, combat asks for patience, encounters repeat, common enemies show up often, and their behavior doesn't really change much over time. You learn how they move, how they attack, and how to deal with them kinda early on. That rhythm carries through most of the game. Boss fights stand apart. They feel more considered. They carry more weight. Regular encounters fill the space between those moments, and that space can feel long sometimes. The camera plays a role in that also. It does its job most of the time, but there are moments where it makes things harder than they need to be. Tight spaces, uneven terrain, or sudden shifts in perspective can make movement feel awkward. The platforming sections feel especially sensitive to that. Precision asks more from you than the camera consistently supports. Control stiffness shows up here too. Hyakkimaru becomes more capable as you recover body parts, but the game never fully smooths out. Attacks still commit you forward. Recovery takes time, positioning matters, sometimes more than it feels like it should. The game expects you to work within those limits. Dororo's sections add to that unevenness. They change the pace, but they also shift the mechanics. Movement becomes lighter, the combat becomes less central. These sections work as breaks in the flow, but they don't always feel as solid as Hyakkimaru's segments. They ask you to engage differently without fully settling into that difference.
One of them?
Backtracking introduces another layer of friction. The game expects you to revisit earlier chapters. Hidden fiends, sealed paths, and unfinished spaces are part of progression. That structure is intentional. The game even tracks what you've missed and points you back toward it. Even with that guidance, returning to earlier areas can feel unclear. You're often working from memory, trying to recall where something didn't open or where a path felt incomplete. The reward is real. New fiends, new body parts, more progress. The process can just feel slow.
Sword arms have leveled up.
That ties directly into how the game handles completion. To reach the real final chapter, you have to recover every body part. That means finding and defeating every hidden fiend. There isn't an alternate path. The ending is locked behind full completion. The game doesn't frame this as optional either. It treats restoration as the journey itself. Becoming whole requires finishing the work. For some people, that structure lands cleanly. It reinforces the story, every piece matters, every return has a purpose. For others, though, it creates confusion. Side content usually reads as optional. Exploration often feels like a choice. Here, it's a requirement. That expectation isn't always clear until late in the game. That disconnect shows up in how the game was received. Critics tend to land in the middle. The story and concept earned a lot of praise. The mechanics drew mixed reactions. Camera issues, repeated combat, and pacing came up a lot. The ambition was extremely clear. The execution felt uneven to some people, though. People who stayed with it often came away more positive. The story carried them, the boss encounters stood out, the structure made more sense over time. The friction became part of the experience rather than a barrier. Blood Will Tell asks a lot from the player. It asks for patience, it asks for attention. It asks for you to move at its pace and accept its limits. That approach doesn't land evenly for everyone. Some parts feel sharper than others, some ideas stretch further than the system supporting them. What matters, though, is that the game stays committed to what it's trying to do. Completion isn't framed as extra. Friction isn't framed as a mistake. The restraint stays part of the design from start to finish. That commitment shaped how the game played, how it was received, and why it still gets talked about now. The experience asks you to stay with it, but not everyone did. Blood Will Tell kind of came and went when it released. It showed up on the PS2, some people found it, and then it slowly drifted out of sight. Over time, it turned into one of those games you hear about more than you see. What stuck with the game was the idea. The whole game is built around getting pieces of yourself back. That's the center of it. Progress happens slowly, control opens up over time, movement changes as you go. Things start making more sense the longer you stay with it. That approach carries through everything. The body part system does most of the work. Every upgrade comes from reclaiming something physical. Getting stronger means becoming more complete, and mechanics and story move together the entire time. That's something people remember.
Sword arms have leveled up.
Don't escape!
Dragon Brood!
Misaki! Watch out!
This is my sword. You will have to pry it from my cold fingers if you want it.
The chapter structure helps with that too. Breaking the journey into episodes gives it shape. You remember places, you remember why you were there. Going back to earlier chapters feels like finishing something you couldn't fully deal with before. That kind of structure asks you to slow down and pay attention. And the story is a big part of why the game stays with people. Dororo really matters in this. She's there for the whole journey. Time spent together adds up. The ending works because that time was allowed to exist. That payoff comes from sticking with it. As the years went on, the game became hard to find. Physical copies just dried up. People started talking about it like one of the rare PS2 games to have for a collector. It turned into something you had to look for. That became part of its identity. Now it sits in a specific place. It's a game that followed one idea all the way through. What it left behind isn't a template or a lesson or anything, it's more like a reminder. Games can be built around absence. Progress can mean something, patience can carry an experience. That's why people still bring it up. It knew what it was doing, and it stayed there. If you've made it all the way to the end of this, seriously thank you. I really appreciate y'all sticking around and hanging out with me some. I'm especially curious about this. If you found the channel through Resident Evil or one of the other horror games I've done, I'd love to know if you ended up watching this one all the way through. I love horror, and it's always going to be one of the big parts of the channel, but there are just so many other games like Blood Will Tell that deserve to be talked about too. That's kind of what this space is for, remembering things that didn't get their moment, or didn't stick around long enough, but still mattered. If you feel like it, leave a comment and let me know what brought you here, or what you thought about Blood Will Tell. I always enjoy reading y'all's comments, and it also really helps shape where the channel goes next. But if you enjoyed the video, consider subbing. We're getting so close to 10,000. Either way, thank you all again, and as always, I'll see y'all later.
Hyakkimaru, are you alright?
Yeah. My right eye just grew back in.